Russlands ambassade i Norge beskylder norske myndigheter for å drive en grunnløs kampanje mot Russland. Ambassaden reagerer sterkt på at Politiets sikkerhetstjeneste og Etterretningstjenesten rangerer Russland som den største risikoen for Norges sikkerhet.
We don't understand why PST is keeping on emphasizing threats coming from Russia and putting it even over the terrorism.
Ambassaden hevder at Russland kun har vennlige intensjoner mot Norge, og stiller seg uforstående til stadige presseoppslag om russisk etterretningsvirksomhet mot Norge. We have a meeting with Andrei Kulikov. Dette er Andrei Kulikov, presseattaché ved den russiske ambassaden i Oslo. Han mener det pågår en grunnløs og antirussisk kampanje i norske medier. Han mener kampanjen er delvis støttet av norske myndigheter. Kulikov reagerer sterkt på at Politiets sikkerhetstjeneste og Etterretningstjenesten i sine siste trusselvurderinger har utpekt Russland som den aller viktigste trusselen og risikoen for Norges nasjonale sikkerhet.
As the embassy has emphasized many times, we find these allegations groundless, and we don't understand why PST is keeping on emphasizing threats coming from Russia and putting it even over the terrorism. I find these allegations quite strange and quite dangerous in the way of formulating this negative image of Russia in Norwegian society.
Are they making up a ghost that doesn't exist, or do they misinterpret the intentions of Russia?
I'm not a part of that process, but I can just say that there are no grounds for this assessment, and it's quite strange to hear that Russia is posing a threat, if it's a military threat or a so-called espionage threat, not to say aggressive espionage threat. This is something very strange to me, but I understand that these allegations might be quite catchy and might be quite welcomed by the media and those journalists looking for scandals.
Den russiske diplomaten er ikke glad for stadige medieoppslag i Norge om gamle spionsaker fra den kalde krigen basert på arkivmateriale fra avhoppere fra det tidligere KGB. Han mener norske journalister burde holde seg for gode til å lage slike saker.
I also find it quite strange why, after so many years, you need to dig into, old stories and try to put them up and again use them for creating another way of negative coverage of Russia. We can go down to, Tsar times in Russia, or maybe we can go back to Vikings and find something negative there. I think if all Norwegian journalists would be going the same way, they would probably need to do that, because then they would run out of material and archives.
Kulikov mener PST og E-tjenesten kan ha egne motiver for å ville skape et fiendebilde der Russland tildeles rollen som den viktigste trusselen mot Norge.
I think the public attention or the way of bringing its own conclusions on the first pages of newspapers might be the one, but again, it's a logic that it's quite hard to follow, and since these statements are, to my mind, a bit out of logic, I cannot really follow it.
På en sikkerhetskonferanse i München i februar slo Russlands statsminister fast at det har oppstått en ny kald krig mellom Russland og Vesten, i første rekke NATO. Do you perceive NATO to be a threat against Russia?
We are perceiving NATO as a partner that we are always ready to communicate with. But the other thing is that NATO is running activities that are bringing up worries in Russia. And those activities that are taking place next to our borders, they cannot be ignored by Russia.
But why then is NATO now included as an enemy in the military doctrine in Russia when that was updated in December last year?
If you're asking myself, my personal view is also referred to the national security doctrine, that we are always ready to cooperate with NATO. But the thing is that NATO has not been paying any respect to Russian worries and Russian interests that we've been pointing at.
I fjor høst kom flere tusen flyktninger til den norsk-russiske grensen i Finnmark. Flyktningene måtte passere 3 grensekontroller på veien, alle kontrollert av det russiske sikkerhetspolitiet FSB. Sentrale kilder i regjeringsapparatet mener at det som skjedde var russisk hybridkrigføring mot Norge som NATO-medlem.
The allegations initiated by some Western media and some unknown informational sources in the West that Russia has something to do with Syrian flow of refugees going to Norway has nothing to do with reality, because it's not Russia that first initiated the campaign in Syria.
But FSB controls the border areas, free checkpoints.
The FSB controls the border, but FSB cannot prevent people from going out of Russia, because if these people have a one-entry visa,
Someone decided to allow it, not to stop it.
Yes, but every person has the right to go out of the country.
You don't necessarily have the right to enter the Schengen area without a Schengen visa.
Yes, that's the right of Norwegian authorities to prevent people from doing that. But Russian border control cannot prevent people from leaving Russia by the Russian law.
Kulikov mener det er de gode levekårene i Norge som var grunnen til flyktningestrømmen, og at russiske myndigheter ikke spilte noen rolle i det som skjedde.
The FSB was not inviting people to Norway. Maybe it was very good conditions of living in Norway that pushed people to come to this country.
There was actually a former Russian diplomat in St. Petersburg who made a living by selling visas to Russia and inviting people to use Russia as a transit route for Syrian refugees.
There were also these cases, and it has been investigated by Russian police. But again, where's the sign of Russia pushing all these people? As, for instance, Mr. Breedlove was saying, well, there are no...
But according to a local newspaper in St. Petersburg, Russian authorities knew about that activity 1 year ahead of time before they started acting on it and stopping it.
I don't know what exactly was meant, but the thing is that many of people that actually streamed to Norwegian border were living in Russia illegally, and they were not only Syrians, they were people from other countries.
But why did they suddenly decide to move on to Norway then?
Because they thought that that's a good chance to jump to a living train to a better life.
But isn't it a little strange then that suddenly the refugee flow stops in Norway, and then it starts in Finland, and then suddenly it stops in Finland as well?
Because people were...
From one day to another?
Yes, because people were streaming to Norway first, because they thought that conditions of living in Norway might be better. And then when they understood that there was put a stop by both efforts from the Russians and Norwegians, and that people got started to be sent back, they started to so to say, attack Russian-Finnish border. So I don't see anything strange here.
But why should we believe your claim that you have so little control of the border areas?
I don't say that we have a little control of the border area, because we have a very good control of the border area. We don't have a control in general, and when I say we, I mean both Norway and Russia. We cannot control migrants, or at least we couldn't control the migrants leaving Russia, because no one could prevent them from leaving the country. They are not in prisons. They haven't committed anything that the Russian authorities should have stop them from going to Norway.
Etterretningstjenesten slo I sin siste trusselvurdering fast at det en økning av cyberangrep mot norske IT-systemer, og som kan knyttes direkte til Russland.
Vi følger jo en del av aktivitetene i det digitale rom, og vi ser forsøk på å infiltrere norske IKT-systemer, ha inntrengning inn mot norsk industri, myndighetsapparater og så videre.
Russiske cyberangrep mot Norge, har det utelukkende etterretningsinnhenting som formål, eller tester man også sårbarhet i norske systemer?
Ja, det er vanskelig å si, det er kanskje en kombinasjon av begge deler, og det er også industrispionasje, etterretning vi også ser.
Can you confirm that Russia is behind these attacks?
I cannot confirm that, and I wouldn't confirm it because, again, I think that's a way of criticizing Russia for everything and for every deadly sin, so to say, and that's a very trendy thing nowadays.
But how are we to believe that you are completely innocent and that you show no interest militarily or intelligence-wise or in the cyber defense area for Norway? Is that really true?
Well, I think, again, we shouldn't simplify things. There are no innocent people, or there are no states innocent or that should be blamed for or guilty. That's a one-sided approach. I'm just trying to say that Russia is not posing any threat.
Mange tusen mennesker har mistet livet i den blodige krigen i Øst-Ukraina. NATO og internasjonale observatører har rettet hard kritikk mot Russland for å støtte separatistmiljøene og for selv å delta i krigen.
We are part of peaceful process or peace building process in Ukraine, but we are not the one standing behind the front lines, and I'm really surprised why Russia is considered to be a part of the conflict in that way.
Kulikov avviser påstander og informasjon fra ulike kilder om at russiske militæravdelinger er aktive i krigen i Øst-Ukraina.
There was a credible information about chemical weapon in Iraq, but then it turned out to be not credible. So I think that's the way of one-side interest to focus on these sides of the information or the other ones. But I don't, agree that these facts clearly show that Russia is being a part of the conflict.
Pardon my question, but since your president lied about being involved in Crimea and admitted 1 year later that he was directing the operation from Moscow, why should we believe you now?
Why or where he was lying? He was not saying.
He denied the presence of Russian forces and Russian involvement in what was happening in Crimea.
Yes, because Russian forces.
1 year later he said that this was controlled by me and us all along.
Yes, because you shouldn't forget that Crimea, even when it was a part of Ukraine, has a Russian military base. So Russian military personnel has always been at Crimea. It's not a surprise to any country, also in the West, to any NATO country, that we have our personnel there.
What about the barricades outside Ukrainian military bases, taking over the bases? Was that Russian forces?
I'm not sure.
Russland foretar en massiv modernisering og opprustning av sitt militære forsvar. Det skjer også i nordområdene. Det er opprettet en arktisk kommando, 2 nye arktiske brigader og stadig flere militærbaser og flyplasser. Russland har også bestilt et stort antall nye fly, marinefartøyer og annet forsvarsmateriell.
What Russia is doing in the Arctic is bringing back the infrastructure that we have lost after the collapse of the Soviet Union. But it's not making anything extra. It's not making anything that other Arctic states are not doing, including Norway, because Norway is also enhancing its military presence in the north. So I don't see there any ground for dramatism.
Some of the capacities that you are establishing or re-establishing in the Arctic is quite extensive.
Well, I would answer with another question towards you. But why are you not worried with U.S. ships cruising the northern shores of Norway and maybe training for something why you're questioning the ability to develop and modernize the weapons that otherwise would stay on the level of 90s. So definitely Russia is doing modernization as all other countries do. But you also have to keep in mind that 1/3 of Russia is situated up in the north, over the polar circle. And according to Russian national strategy of security, our military presence in that area is crucial for us, especially when we witness the melting of ice, the increasement in economic activity. We have northern sea route, not at least. So definitely we have some challenges that we need an infrastructure for, but it doesn't mean that we need this infrastructure to threaten anyone or to pose any threats to Norway.
Is the Arctic the potential source of income for Russia?
The Russian Arctic shelf contains lots of resources, not only oil and gas, but we all know that the undiscovered resources are huge and discovered are quite big. But they are Russians anyway, because we don't have any territory in the Arctic that should be put on dispute, and the areas of Russian Arctics are not disputed by anyone.
So would it be a fair judgment to guess that Russia primarily wants stability in the northern hemisphere and in the Arctic, but if there is a threat to that stability, that Russia will respond quite strongly?
I think every nation will respond quite strongly if its national interests are under question. But again, I don't see any reason for that conflict in the Arctic.